myself and all the friends I was wrong and you were right. But your sins that happened in the dark will come out in the light. I'm not gonna waste my breath, I won't put up a fight. 'Cause the days are gonna whisper, and the months are gonna talk, until the years shall out the truth. Time will tell, time will tell on you. When a train whistles far away, and when the cold wind blows, when the lightning in your eyes reveals the darkness in your soul, the world will be reminded of what it already knows. 'Cause the days are gonna whisper, and the months are gonna talk, until the years shall out the truth. Time will tell, time will tell on you. No one may ever say a thing, but surely as the seasons change, you feel like everything points at you, 'cause you're to blame. And the days are gonna whisper, and the months are gonna talk, until the years shall out the truth. Time will tell, time will tell on you. It's gonna tell on
Okay. Hi everybody. I hope you enjoyed that sound check a little better. So we've got our sound check done, and I can see our visual because I've learned to pop out the chat. So I want to welcome everybody aboard. How's everybody doing today? Oh, that's right. There we go. Let me go to live. That top chat confuses me. I don't even understand it. Okay. All right. So we did get our sound check done today. And yes, I want to make an announcement. Today is going to be the attachments to the motion yesterday, the reply to the motion for retrial by Zellner. So the state was replying. We still have the circuit court's reply yet. Normally, I would have guessed that without the circuit court's request, state wouldn't have jumped the gun. But in this case, state jumps the gun all the way through the case. So no big surprise. Good to see everybody. Hi, Jill. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Lisa. We do have some mods. If you're stuck, they're there to help you, and they're giving you links at all times. You can go ahead and put at their name, and that way they'll see you if you want something called out. I will pop chat out here. Let's see. I got to go. I'm learning this, you guys. Baby steps, baby steps. Pop out chat. Okay. Then we're going to shrink it down. Hopefully, that way, if you have a question, I might see it. Like I say, though, when I'm reading, my eyes are pretty much locked on what I'm reading. I'm very excited today. I did have a chance to scan what we're about to go through, and it's quite incredible. It's one of the most exciting documents yet for me, because we do have a molecular biologist. When he gets his hands on this tonight, he's Australian time, and so he's probably sleeping right now. But hi, Fate, how are you? Once he gets his hands on this these attachments, this is going to be amazing. So I want to send out a very, very special thank you to Jax from Gossip Man, as well as Stephen Avery on Facebook, because she has supplied us with these documents out of the kindness of her heart, and they were not free. I'm not sure if she wants me to share how much they cost, but they were not cheap documents. So for her to just open this up to the public, it's a good grace to show how much people do support Brendan and Stephen to fighting this, and how wrongfully convicted they were, that we have this much kind of support. The more we dig into the case, the wider our eyes are becoming, and we're so far past just the information provided in MAM 1 and MAM 2. We're now seeing documents. So this whole guilter concept that once you read past the documentaries, that you will see what the real story is. Well, we've done that, guys, and we are all here to stand up. So I'm going to ask you guys to tweet today. Just stand up for Stephen and Brendan today. I want us to stand up. So that's the amazing part, is you can see around the board the truthers are stepping up together. Whether I like somebody's hair color or somebody likes my feathers doesn't matter. What the goal here is for us to provide a united front. And that is that as truthers, we have one united goal, and we're all here to get the best work we can done. Somebody might do it different than I do. I might do it different than somebody else. Even in our research group, which is an amazing, incredible group, we all actually have different opinions on this case, and we work very well together because of that. So I think it's just, positive thinking. And what kind of positive thinking can we accomplish with this case? And that is when we all come together and start sharing information. So instead of, you find out something and you tuck it away in your library, tuck it away in a public library. So if you have documents you want to add to our library, which is at Rubberducky, StephenAveryFiles.com, there's a spot there that you can drop it in. You don't even have to attach your name if you don't want to. Or if you would like us to give you a thank you, we'd be very happy to do so. Include your name there. And if we can verify that that's something legitimately as a document or something we don't have, we'll give you a shout out on the show here. So also, I would like to say, as Rubberducky Armchair Sleuths, we really don't have any subscribers. There might be a number with the word subscribers, but we all actually consider that supporters of the cause. So we are over 3,000 supporters of the cause, and we are delighted. And so here we go, you guys. We have the best information coming up. Now let's do a change of the thing here and make sure you can see what. Let me turn the phone on airplane mode so that we don't get dinged to death while we're trying to do this. And I have Gretchen on my bed, and so she should be quiet for us today. Okay, airplane mode engaged. I did make some side notes from the supplemental, or I'm sorry, the reply yesterday. Just a few that if we have a chance, we'll touch on those as well. But as we promised, here is our live chat. So if you would like to join me, we'll grab something to look at. Let's see here. Make this a little bit bigger. And we're going to go here. And we're going to find a picture to look at. Make sure you guys can see everything really clear. They always end up in my personal files. Well, you get to know more about me than I even expected. Okay, let's go to our Rubberducky, our channel here. And we'll just grab, let's see, we should have our video too. Oh, I know where we should go. We'll go back one and grab the gallery because I saw this really cute picture. So this will be our visual check, you guys. Once I can see that you guys can see everything, we will go ahead and start with the second part of the response by state. So the computer's got a lot of pictures on it right now. Here's one of my favorite. I do like this. So we'll use this today as our visual. I'm not sure which Rubberducky in the world gave this to us, but it is a beautiful, beautiful little thing there. So let's go back to live chat. Did you all see the autism the world from a different perspective. Hi to Kitten and Boots. Okay, you see it switch out. Oh, it's at top chat again. Oh, because I went big. A slow start today, you guys, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay. First time live. Okay. Yes. Okay. We've got visual. So what we're going to do here is we'll go here. Let's go ahead and as usual, we're going to go to the library. So that's Rubber. Whoops. Ducky. Stephen Avery Files.com. So once we get here, we'll give it a second to boot up. Thank you, Fate, for answering, by the way. And welcome to the channel to Kitty and Boots. Yeah, Lisa's got a good point while we're waiting on this to load. She says, I don't think most guilters realize there's a difference between arguing and debating. Very good. Yeah, everybody should get a turn. And not one person should have to put up all the information and the other one just challenge, challenge, challenge. I agree. Okay, so we need to go. Let's see if I can get this working. It's kind of slow right now because of the chat and the live and everything. The computer's bogged down. But if this doesn't work for me, if the computer's too slow, do know that it's in the post-conviction file that's under the library under documents. And I can give you the link to that. We'll put it down in the bottom of this video for you. But if you go to documents on the Stephen Avery Library, you can choose this document right here. I'm highlighting it for you. 2005 CF 000381-EX 1184477.pdf. And that is in our documents in the library. And this is the second part. So this is a forensic anthropology case report 2 of 2. Hey Crockett, how you doing? All right, guys. What this is this is the other part. It's 48 pages long, but it's not all talk about the case itself. Some of it is actually video, or not video, I'm sorry, visuals. So you're getting a lot of photographs, x-rays and stuff, but this is going to be by far one of the most interesting reports for a while. So let's dig in. Welcome back to Making a Murder, my journal. And today we're going to cover the second part to the state of Wisconsin's response to retrial, the motion for retrial. Forensic Anthropology Case Report 2 of 2, reflecting work performed from July 21, 2006 through December 3rd, 2006. Now, we're not going to read this entire thing, but we are going to jump down here and hit some points. It's Calumet Sheriff's Office case number. We have the investigation for the DCI. We have the state of Wisconsin crime lab number. But what I want to show you is this. This is the FBI number for this case. And that's where you're going to find out they play a part in this. So a lot of people are always asking, why isn't the FBI taking notice of this case? They did. And that's a little frustrating, but you're going to see that they did take part in it. We're going to start off here with the forensic anthropology profile. It says adult female of undermined ancestry and stature, age less than 35 years. A deliberate attempt was made to obscure cause and manner of death through burning, and human agency must be invoked to explain the presence of 2 discrete skull defects documented in the analysis whose location correspond to the scatter of radioplaque particles adjacent to those defects in X-ray. This young adult female should be considered a victim of homicidal violence. So the first thing, you guys, what they're saying, if you look at this, is they're saying discrete skull defects documented in these analysis whose locations correspond to the scatter of radioplaque particles. So what I did is in our library, I went ahead and I've got the definitions in there for you for radioplaque and some of the other words we're going to come across. And you'll be able to go in and look under the evidence and then go to DNA, choose bones, and under there you will find definitions. So radioplaque particles basically are substances that the X-ray does not penetrate. So almost like opaque, when you look at a color, it's solid, but translucent means light transfers through. Well, an X-ray is light. And what they're saying is this radio plaque, which is radiopaque. So it's radiopaque. This radiopaque means it's not translucent in that area of the bone. So the x-ray is not passing through. And a lot of things that can cause that, it could be disease related. However, when you get beveling, which is an actual mark of, it's where you've often seen your table has a beveled edge, or your wood trim in your home has a beveled edge. This is actual marks that are very clean in the sense of I'm trying to explain it. The beveling is a pattern. And in this case, it's a pattern that has duplicated what you would see in a homicidal violence. And they go on to talk about this. They say, continued examination and analysis. Because of the extreme level of the detail involved in the forensic anthropological examination and the documentation of the analysis of the fragmentary and burned human remains, I refer those who may be interested in detailed bone inventories, the opening and closing times of evidence tape and containers, and other such information to case notes that are on file with the undersigned. So, in other words, she's doing a chain of command. She's stating this report is based on the evidence that they have in containers. She goes on to say, during the period covered by this report, digital photography was performed on October 15th, November 4th, 17, 24, and 27, 2006. All photographs taken to date are on file with the undersigned and the Calumet District Attorney's Office. None of those original photographs have been altered. Each represents a true and accurate likeness of the image depicted. So there's the credential that she's listed. In total, from the initial examination by the undersigned on November 10, 2005, to the date of this report, I examined the contents of 50 separate containers of varying sizes, each labeled with a Calumet County Sheriff's Department evidence tag number, and sometimes other agency case numbers. All of the forensic anthropology work was performed at the Dane County Coroner's Morgue facility located at 115 West Dottie Street, Madison, Wisconsin. A 3-page spreadsheet documented the series of evidence tag numbers examined is attached as enclosure A. The comments column was added as a reference to help organize the massive amounts of material presented for forensic anthropology analysis and is not meant to represent an exhaustive inventory of all items examined and identified in each evidence container. The complete range of activities performed during the forensic anthropology study included. Now, this is where I want you to really tune in, okay? This is what she's talking about. Let's go back and look at that. The complete range of activities performed during this forensic anthropology study includes, so just about this report, these are the inventoried items that she's talking about in Exhibit 1. The recognition and separation of burned human from burned and unburned non-human bone. So right there, let's highlight that. The recognition and separation of burned human from burned and unburned non-human. So they've done something because you can't just guess at that. I would suggest, in my humble opinion, that they've performed a test to be able to tell which is which, to be able to really honestly not throw a human bone in the wrong pile. Number 2, the recognition and separation of burned human bone from burned and unburned non-biological material. So, okay, there must be some non-biological material that they separated. 3, the identification and inventory of diagnostic burned human bone elements. Diagnostic includes testing, you guys. So where are all the tests that they did and why does Zellner not have these? This is a big problem for me. The recognition of any and all taphonomic factors, I'm guessing at the word, taphonomic We'll go with it. Taphonomic factors that may have altered the bone and other items presented for analysis. Okay, so in other words, anything that may have changed the bones that would affect an analysis. The development of biological profile of an individual represented by the remains recovered. The recognition and documentation of any and all ante, peri, and post-mortem trauma to the burned human remains. The refitting, where possible, of discrete burned human cranial and postcranial bone fragments. So in other words, they're jigsaw puzzling back bones. Number 8, the selection, packaging, and transmittal of bone samples to the FBI, Wisconsin Crime Lab and Division of Criminal Investigation, Wisconsin Department of Justice. So the selection, packaging, and transmittal of bones to the FBI, Wisconsin Crime Lab. Okay, so chain of command information. 9, photography of material collected, including human and non-human remains, as well as some non-biological items. 10, off-site screening of soil. Number 11, ongoing coordination with investigators. So you will see a lot of different reports. And before we continue this report, we're going to scan this so that you can see. We won't be able to probably finish this today. It's possible. But after this report, which we're going to go over, I want to get down here so that you can see what we'll have then. Because this is there's going to be a couple videos here. And maybe we'll do them today and just break them up. So you can see here, this is what we're going to be talking about. And let me shrink this down a little bit so that you can see a better picture and see the whole picture. Can everybody, let me type here. There we go. Everyone see the bone pictures? Just making sure we're still doing good here. I'm just waiting for a reply. Everybody got kind of quiet. I don't want to go through this whole video and then realize I'm not broadcasting. Okay, guys, thank you so much. I'm just going to guess that you guys are paying attention like I was when I read this. It just floored me. All right, so here we go. Thank you for answering, everyone. Jocelyn and Cobweb, CJ, thank you guys, and everybody else too. Okay, so here's the bone. Another picture of a bone. Look at this. You can definitely tell this is bone. Look at these little fibers and something. And look at the pocketing here. So this one says figure 2, enclosed and close up. All right. Look at this picture, you guys. Oh, this just is breaking my heart. Whew. Okay, just take a deep breath, guys. Figure 12. This is what we're looking at. Now, keep in mind, some of these are animal bones, so we don't know which kind of picture this is. For those of us that are going to be checking in, I need you to make a note. This is 8675, which is very important that we find out what this means when they say enclosure 0. So make some notes. Hi, Tyson. Yep, we're going to keep going with this report. It's just the exhibits and other reports attached, including the anthropologist forensic report from Dr. Eisenberg. So this is quite hard to look at, actually, emotionally charging. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about, as we've seen in the past, this is the return of items to, I believe, the hall box here on page 1114. And that's the one that Zellner did not have, and she was relying on a civilian. So, no, you won't have seen these pictures before, my dear. Jax has actually paid to get these documents and kind enough to bring them over to us and hand deliver them to us, to the Rubberducky researchers, which was an amazing moment for us because we stand up with Jax completely on everything she's done. This has just been an amazing time for all of us to go through, and we stay together on this. So here we go, you guys. Let's stay together and stay positive. All right. So Calumet County Sheriff's Department. This is more of the ledger in the funeral home and how that went. This is a copy here of the gentleman that is Mr. Kirby, which I believe was the private eye for Jerome Buting and basically Stephen Avery. And he did get requests he had to pay for them. And that's what the state was referring to, is that he had received these documents much earlier. And you get into what the law enforcement stated as a reply. You get that he gets to actually pay for it, and we're going to come along. There it is, his receipt, showing that he actually did pay for these items. It also goes into a few more things, but what I'm trying to get to, which we will get all these, like I said, this week will be fun. We're going to be jumping through here like crazy. I want to get to the part, boom. So here's the full rapid DNA information, and this is the only little bit that the state used. Wait until you find out what is coming up back here, because there's some stipulations, and we fall in grace, in good grace. And so that's very exciting, because the only thing I got to say is we're lucky we have Dr. Selden. So, all right, guys, that's what I want to show you at the bottom. We're going to go back up to the top, and we're going to try. Yes, thanks, Jax. Please go over and personally thank her for sharing such important information with us. And she just does it to further the support and working for Brendan and Stephen to get them home. So, okay, guys, let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's see here. Where were we? I've totally lost my spot. We did Exhibit 1, I believe. We went through all of those. Ongoing coordination. Okay. We're going to go ahead and start again. Before we start, if you want to go ahead, go to the rubberduckystephenaveryfiles.com. Choose your document tab and then go to post conviction. You can use the number right up here. I'll try to highlight it. That is the file number that you are looking for. It is 2005CF00381-EX11844477 PDF. The reason it's labeled that way is that is how it comes from the state, and we want everybody to be able to find the document. All right, ready to roll, everybody? Here we go. The state and age assessment provided in my report dated July 4, 2006, and reported above under forensic anthropological profile remains unchanged as a result of the work performing during this second and final report interval. Because of the degree of the bone fragmentation, it is not possible to estimate stature or provide information on ancestry. While no count of the human and non-human bones and fragments was undertaken, including the many non-biological items separated out, several thousand items were sorted, examined, and documented during the course of the entire forensic anthropological analysis. Photographs were taken of the most diagnostic items, and in particular the skull fragments, because of the extensive burning, charring, and fragmentation of many of the smaller postcranial fragments. Many were not amenable to photography. I don't understand why they wouldn't be good for photography. The skull fragments, because of extensive burning, charring, fragmentation of many of the smaller postcranial fragments, were not amenable to photography. Interesting. I'm not a professional photographer, but I would like to know why you can't take a picture of something. All right, moving on. On November 6, 2006, I transferred 2 burned cranial fragments to F.A. Richard E. Wetterspoon of the Madison office of the FBI for mitochondrial DNA analysis. A copy of that 3-page transmittal report is appended to this report as enclosure B. On November 9, 2006, I received a telephone call from a Mr. Les McCurdy of the FBI indicating that given the burned conditions of the bones sent for examination, it would not be possible to obtain mtDNA from those fragments. Mitochondrial DNA is also this that they're talking about. So the telephone call from Mr. Les Curdy of the FBI indicated that the burned condition of the bones would not be possible for mitochondrial DNA testing, which is testing that the mother could have produced the identification of the bones. So that's what they reported. On November 6, 2006, I transferred one possible human long bone shaft fragment from tag. Now pay very close attention, guys. Look at this, armchair sleuths. I've never ever seen this tag noted until this reply from the state. Now, it was mentioned yesterday and it's mentioned here. So, this is something we can actually follow up on. Remember, we got the 300 pages from the CASO logs just like what, a month ago? In there, you're going to find this, hopefully. If you don't find it in there, we have problems. Well, they have problems. We don't. Um, but this is something absolutely remarkable to see 7964 tagged for me personally. Maybe there are some people that are going to say, hey, I've known about that tag forever. Well, I wish you would have shared the info because it's new to me and it's new to some of our RD specialists as well as our RD researcher that's our molecular biologist. So he was quite delighted to see this number. So that property tag number is 7964. Um, to Special Agent James C. Holmes of the Wisconsin Department of Justice Division for Criminal Investigation. A copy of property receipt D6286 documenting the transfer is attached to this report enclosed as C. The purpose of this report is more fully document and describe the human cranial and postcranial bones recovered and any peri, ante, or post-mortem alterations observed. So in other words, they're trying to find out if there was after death things happen to these bones. What events occurred? What can they tell about the environment on the post-mortem bones? Obviously, we don't have pre-mortem because we don't have a body of a living person. So post-mortem meaning dead. According to D. Grunchy and Rogers 2002, the successful analysis of trauma on cremated bones is contingent upon the size and conditions of the fragments, which are significantly influenced by a number of variables, including but not limited to temperature, duration of burning, agitation during burning, the presence of accelerants, the relative proportion of cordial hard compact bone to less dense cancellous. Trab, I'm going to try this name, trabecular bone. I'm unsure what that is, and the presence of soft tissue. While identified and documented, the non human bone collected is not the focus in this report. In general, however, the non human bone is largely unburned, while the bone recognized as human has been burned. Wow, does that mean that somebody found animal bones that were already there and decided to try to mask bones, but human bones, by laying them with the animal bones? Good question. The burning episode. The human remains presented for forensic anthropologist analysis would be classified as incomplete bone pieces by Eichert, 1988, as consistent with level 5 out of 5 in the the Crow-Glassman scale. Let me grab a drink. Little sweet tea. What do you expect? I'm a little southern. Okay, Glassman and Crow, 1996, to find the ultimate level of destruction when the body is cremated. Little or no tissue remains. The remains are highly fragmentary and incomplete, and when identification is most difficult, requiring the assistance of a forensic anthropologist and a forensic ontocologist. Ontologist. There we go. The human bone recovered in this case is highly fragmented and is burnt and blackened. Many fragments exhibit hallmarks of calcined bone, colors ranging from white to gray to blue, where the organic content of the bone has been lost through burning. Jay, I appreciate your question. We are going to be doing an open question and answer following this live. And if you watch the mods, Lily and Bumblebee and I think Silkman, or yeah, Tony, he'll be on and they'll be giving you the link to that. And we can definitely bring you up to speed on that. Right now, what we're doing is we are going through the second part of the exhibits and of the documentation and the reports by Dr. Eisenberg that were supposed to be attached to the release of state yesterday. So their response was there, but we didn't have the backside of the response. And Jax from Ma'am Gossip, as well as Stephen Avery Files, came over today and walked in our group in our research lab, and we loved it. She came and saw us, and she brought us this to share. So we're just excited. So we're right in the middle of that. So we'll stay together here. But thank you for joining us. Yeah, Texas house wine. Woo! I'm originally from. I was born in Florida, and I was raised in Arkansas, and I wound up in Wisconsin in my youth, and I've been here for over 40 years in Wisconsin. But I still love my sweet tea because I go see my family all the time. Okay, you guys, let's go ahead and get back into the report. It is important to recognize that even bodies extremely destroyed by fire can still supply forensically relevant findings, and that many parts of the skeleton, as well as signatures of anti and perimortem trauma to the body, are readily identifiable even after thermal destruction. The undersigned is familiar with the large body of theoretical and actualist scientific literature that recognizes the many variables at play when human remains are exposed to fire effect. And they cite numerous cases. In this case, many of those variables are unknown and cannot be reconstructed anthropologically after the fact. Because of the sheer volume of human bone fragments presented for examination, and the difficulty of distinguishing in some cases whether or not non-diagnostic burned bone fragments were of human origin, I have not generated any cumulative weight estimate. There is no recognizable duplication in any diagnostic human bone and no evidence to suggest that more than one individual is represented. Let's stop there for a minute. So basically in this, if that's true, okay, I just want to throw this out there. What she's saying is they couldn't weigh this because they just had so many bones. Well, you can still weigh it for one. You could weigh it. And because of the fact that they're talking about non-diagnosed burn bones, they could have weighed the ones they knew were human. But the most important part is, did she have any duplicated bones? So you can't really have two left feet, or you'd know you have two parts. And what really bothers me is if you look at BZ, which is the BZ that the state crime lab had, and then it was called Q1 by the FBI. They've got a one by that very specific bone for them, and at the same time, the state crime lab has the same bone. How is that possible? Unless they have either fudged it and stated that they have two bones, but only one agency had it, or if they have the exact same bone duplicated, is it possible we have two victims? I mean, I don't believe it's two victims. I believe it's one. But I'm just saying, with their shenanigans that they're pulling, they are producing questions that they're going to end up facing that they don't like. They don't want us to think that we have multiple victims. They want us to believe that the only victim was Teresa and she was right in Stephen's backyard. And we are finding out that they are going through extreme measures to hide the pelvic bones and the other bones that were found down in the Randit quarry. So why are they going to such lengths? What's so bad about testing bones if they're not human? Huh? Give us back the chicken bones that you may have given to the Halbach family. We know it's Teresa's bones. All right, guys, let's jump back into it. Cause and manner of death interpretation. Now, when you see it highlighted, you guys, this is where the state has used this information in their motion yesterday to deny the retrial. Frustrating as it may be, we need to go over it. A minimum number of 58 diagnostic human skull fragments of varying sizes, not including dental structures, were recovered and identified anthropologically. Not including dental structures, uh, there was a fragmented tooth. Where did that go if it's not part of the bones? Okay, continuing. Figure 1, enclosure D, presents a relative size comparison of some of those fragments. The lower image represents a composite of 4 refitted fragments. Bone from the frontal, parietal, um, I looked this word up, occipital. I have a hard time with it. Um, Cephaloid and mandible have been identified. Acceptable. I can't say that word, you guys. Sorry. On page 7 of my July 4th, 2006 report, I indicated that 7 skull fragments showed radiopaque signatures in the form of one or more particles denser than the bone itself. Highlight this part right here. Okay, let's stop right there a minute. So, in order to understand any of this reporting, you have to understand radio packing. So, what radio packing is, it's opaque, it's radio opaque. But the opaque, again, is where it is not translucent. When the x ray is done, it's bouncing back because it's not penetrating the bone. So, the reason that you can get an x ray is because bone actually is not translucent, it's opaque. And what they're saying is this is very, very hyper dense in certain areas, and they're getting a signature where the dense bone has not burned thoroughly. It can actually tell you that these might be places where you could actually find DNA still, where the calcine material is not exactly worthy of that. It's just too decomposed to get that. However, the new DNA testing, the Andy system, would most likely be able to use those calcine levels. So let's continue. A re examination of the digital photos taken by me on November 17, 2005, as well as the 10 x rays taken on the same day, confirms that, in fact, a minimum of 8 fragments shows some signatures. So that means a minimum of 8 bones showed signatures of radio opaque, meaning there might be a chance, a chance that there's a DNA signature that they can actually test. A particular note, 2 of those skull fragments exhibited the most localized radio opaque particles immediately adjacent to and or within 2 different focal bone defects. I think that's facial there, but we'll say focal bone. Hmm. One of which was described in detail in my early report on pages 12 and 13. The parietal fragment highlights 4 hyperdense radiopaque particles and that are visible on 3 separate x-rays of the same 2 bones labeled MK1, MK2, and MK3. I'm not sure why 2 bones are labeled 3, but there you go. The relative skull portion, or position, I should say, of the larger bone and the smaller fragment that can be reapproximated can be identified as the left parietal fragment because of the unmistakable vascular impressions left by the middle meningeal vessels when the fragment is held at an anatomical position. So what she just said is when I hold this bone up, I can see where the blood vessels were imprinted onto the bone. Okay? So that's how she's identifying what part of the skull this is by where blood vessels left an imprint in the bone naturally. The incomplete rounded defect on the inner table of the larger parietal fragment exhibits an unmistakable internal bevel measuring 10.55 millimeters across its opening with a maximum internal bevel width of 22.83 measured along the outer margin of the excavated defect. Around the defect itself, the inner table of the cranial bone is missing, exposing I think it's the diplo. Um, so she goes on to explain that that's sandwiched between the inner and outer tables. So what they're saying about tables, I kind of looked this up, and I'm an amateur at best, but what it sounds like is the tables are in between parts of the it's like if you took the skull and you divided it up on a map, and the tables run a certain place between them, and one of the tables appears to be missing, which is the inner table of the cranial bone. So this piece is missing, which would be exposing the diplo. Okay, so there's a piece missing and there's also beveling that is on the inner table of the large parietal fragment. Now, beveling isn't something you should be seeing on these bones. Okay, beveling implies um, brute force of some kind. So let's continue. From the central wall of the defect to the edge of the bevel on the internal table, the bevel measures 7.27 millimeter. On the corresponding edge of the outer table of the parietal fragment defect, a small curve area of the bone is missing, anterior to the defect margin that measures 3.63 millimeter width. From side to side, it measures 10.95 millimeter. So we're missing some pieces, but the pieces they do have some beveling on them. So she's basically explaining what we're supposed to be looking at. She goes on to the second piece. The second skull fragment, roughly rectangular in shape and most likely from the occipital bone, depicts a localized scattering of at least 10 radiopaque particles that can be visualized in X-ray labeled MK4. Within a defect, whose overall dimensions are impossible to measure because of fragmentation to that part of the bone, that makes it impossible to delimit the edges and borders of the partial defect. The defect itself exhibits an internal bevel, exposes of the diplo with the loss of the small area of the outer table of the bone immediately adjacent to the defect. So where the defect happened, we're missing a big piece. Yep. It says small, but I mean it's a large enough piece that we know it's gone. The incomplete defect in the probable occipital bone fragment lies approximately to the left of the midline at the back of the skull, where the defect described in the parietal bone is located above and anterior to the left side of the head in the temple area. So put your hand, you guys, on the back of your skull, and then with your left hand, touch your temple area. She's talking about that area in between there, okay? Because of the bone fragmentation in the inability to reconstruct the skull, it is not possible to determine in which order the two cranial defects occurred. So she can't tell you which one of the two. So we've got defects, but we don't know what order they occurred. Through incomplete, the edges of both defects are thoroughly burned and similar in color to the individual skull fragments on which they are found, indicating that each defect was already present in the skull when the body was burned. All right, so right there we've got pre-burning, we have this beveling. These pre-existing traumatic defects in the skull, as well as the unfused cranial, I think that's supposed to say structures, but it says sutures, recovered, would have served as a portal for the release of heat during the burning episode. Let's read that again. That's quite interesting. The pre-existing traumatic defects in the skull, as well as the unfused cranial something recovered, would have served as a portal for the release of heat during the burning episode. Without the ability to reconstruct the entire skull, it is not possible to conclusively interpret and distinguish heat-related fragmentation from any additional pre-existing radioing fractures that may have been presented prior to incarceration. It is important to note, however, that the skull fragments that could be refitted, their edges were straight and the bone was not warped. Huh. That bothers me a little bit, you guys. Wouldn't you think if the bones were separated at the time of burning, then you would be not seeing such straight edges. They wouldn't fit that good together because they would have experienced decomposition. Okay, let's continue. The edge characteristic is typical of that seen in fast loading trauma to the skull. Fast loading trauma to the skull. And along with the unmistakable presence of internally beveled defects on two non-opposable cranium fragments from the different bones is characteristic of gunshot trauma to the skull. So let's go back. Okay. Internally beveled defects on two non-opposable. So we have opposable thumbs. So that would mean they're non-opposable. They're completely separate. All right. The second bone fragment exhibiting an internally beveled defect visible on X-ray MK4 exhibits a minimum of 10 hyperdense particles. I transferred this fragment to Mr. Kenneth Olson of the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory in Madison on November 17th, 2006. So is this the first time that they actually have, that the State Crime Lab would have that? It's November 17th, 2006. Armchair Sleuths, if you're interested, and RD researchers, we should double check this fact to see if they're only getting this information on the cranial bones on the 17th. Let's make sure we don't have any reports about the cranial bone coming from the State Crime Lab before November 17th. It would just be interesting. So let's go on. So Mr. Kenneth Olson of the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory in Madison on November 17, 2006, who was asked to perform energy dispersive X-ray analysis, EDX, on the second fragment in order to assess elemental composition of those small radiopaque particles in the immediate area of the defect. This sample, designated by the Wisconsin Crime Lab as item KQ, new one for me, KQ, was picked up by the undersigned on November 24, 2006, and transported directly to the Dane County Coroner's Office morgue facility. An additional 6 cranial fragments exhibit small radiopaque particles or single particle in X-ray. The majority of those bones can be identified as coming from somewhere on the parietal bones. Now, let me go over here because I want to talk about those parietal bones. We need to understand that. Let's see, we don't need the Twitter button anymore. Oh yeah, I wanted to show this to you guys. So let's scroll down or up here. Yeah, remember yesterday in our live, and we were going to tweet that. So I made sure and did this for us. So that's from all of us to there. I put yesterday in our live YouTube. We connected it. What the duck is the state talking about? What fair trial? Crucial evidence was suppressed. Stand up for Stephen and Brendan, all those wrongfully convicted. Stand together. As Elmer Law, making a murder too, and truth wins. So there you guys. We did it. Whole group tweeted at once. All right, let's get back to what we were doing here. We were going to look up this parietal bone. So we don't need this anymore. And I did put this under the bone information in the library. So you can go through the evidence files, and I believe it's evidence lockers, and click the DNA button, choose bones for the tab or the little icon, and it'll take you right into where I'm going to take you. I'm just going through the back way because it's a little quicker for the live, especially when I run a little slower with all the stuff on the computer. So in about 10 minutes, we're going to have the school bus arrive, and whoops, I went the wrong way. We'll back up. Then you're going to hear the dogs carry on probably. But I was smart. I posted a live recording in progress on my front door, so hopefully my children will know. Okay, so let's go. Where did we put it? It was DNA. And then we'll go to the bone. And it's under documents because it's more of a document. So let's look down here. We got property tags, radiopaque. So let's go over that real quick. Opaque to one or another form of radiation, such as X-rays. Radiopaque objects block radiation rather than allow it to pass through. Metal, for instance, is radiopaque. Some metal objects that a patient may have swallowed are visible on x-rays. Radiopaque dyes are used in radiology to enhance x-ray pictures of internal atomic structures. The opposite of radiopaque is radiotranslucent. And then we'll continue on. Let's talk about the diplo bone. So let's understand that real quick so that we can understand what she's talking about. So, exposure of the outer table of the skull for a long time leads to necrosis of the superficial layer. It must therefore be removed down to the deep low with a chisel or brought to an early subscuration by means of numerous perforations made with a burr. So this area that they have to remove to get to the diplo is tough as nails, it sounds like, if they're having to chisel it. So the piece we're missing, it appears to have exposed that area. Sounds like it's a pretty serious part. And then we've got the occipital bone. So occipital. You guys probably make fun of me. I can't talk some of these words. I looked it up for us. It's the bone that forms the back and the base of the skull and through which the spinal cord passes. So you can feel the occipital bone at the back of your skull. Okay. And then we're going to go back and we're going to look at the one we actually came for, which is the parietal bone. So this is the definition of that. A bone forming the central side and upper back part of each side of the skull. So the central side and upper back part of each side of the skull. All right, let's get back over here and let's see. I got to move this so I can see chat in case you guys do have a question. I'm not sure. There we go. Sorry about that. Everybody doing okay? We'll say hi to everybody and we'll get back onto it. I'm just taking a few minutes to kind of grab a drink of sweet tea. I got everybody still with me? Thanks, Lyra. She gave us a clap and a thumbs up and a heart. Okay, guys, we're going to continue back into what we were doing. I hope I'm not boring you guys to death. I'm sorry. I eat this stuff up because if there's some way for us to dig into this and understand it, we need to do it. And none of us know what's going on until we read about it and we're willing to look up some words. And then we can actually dig in. All right, guys. Oh, wonderful. Yes, across the board. All right. An additional 6 cranial fragments exhibit small radiopaque particles or single particle in the X-ray. The majority of those fragments can be identified as coming from somewhere on the parietal bone. So remember, those were the sides of the skull at the back. The small size of several other cranial fragments preclude exact element identification. Because the skull cannot be reconstructed, it is impossible to determine the relative relationship and anatomical positioning of these 6 fragments to the 2 separate areas of the skull that exhibit entrance defects. So remember, we're talking about entrance defects. That's the beveling area we're talking about, where we've got these basically holes with the beveling on the outside edge. For that reason, it is also impossible to reconstruct the direction of fire, the pathway of the projectiles, or the order in which the cranial defects occurred. While there is significant fragmentation to the facial bones recovered, I knew it was facial, and the following areas of the face can be identified with certainty: the general contours of the left and right eye sockets, the left nasal bone, the right cheekbone, and the partial left cheekbone. These fragments, along with other skull fragments and dental structures, were recovered from the burn pit, as were many of the postcranial shaft fragments. Okay, we're about halfway through this. In about 5 minutes, we're going to take a break so everybody can go to the bathroom. They can get their popcorn. I can go and let the kids in from the school bus, and then we'll jump back on in about a 2-minute window and finish up the reporting. But we'll keep going for a little bit. The postcranial remains. The postcranial human remains are fragmentary, burned, and sometimes calcined. Diagnostic fragments of the following postcranial elements were identified: clavicle, scapula, manubrium, upper and lower arms, ribs, hand, wrist, spine, sacrum, pelvis, lower legs or lower leg bones, feet. Some anthropological identifications were made based on the, the presence of anatomical landmarks specific to a particular bone, and others based on the recognizable contours of an individual bone fragment. The side of the body from which a particular bone came could only be determined in a few instances. For example, two opposable fragments from the left clavicle and the left ulna, respectively, could be fitted. Alteration to the postcranial bone is largely related to fire effect, with the possible exception of the presence of cut marks, a saw kerf observed on the burned calcined long bone shaft fragment. Now pay attention. This again is that number I want all of us to really dig into. Tag 7964. Shout out to Manishwalk TikTok, 7 pairs of panties, all you guys. Scooby, I would love for you guys, as well as Silkman, Tony, for you guys to help us dig into that. I'm curious. I will also help go through CASO logs, the 300 pages, and we'll see what we can come up with, because honestly, that number's new to me. I know I'm making a big deal of it, but I just haven't seen it before, and neither has our scientists. So if the scientist that studies this stuff hasn't seen it, I haven't seen it. I'm going to make a big deal out of it. That's strange to see that number. And we might have more information to come on that. So as well as sharp horizontal through and through cut to the superior aspect of the I can't say this word, iliac, there we go, blade and sharp vertical cuts located on either side of the right sacroiliac articulation. Ooh, you guys, the science stuff is killing me. You're killing me, Smalls. That's me and Lily's favorite saying. You're killing me, Smalls. Okay, here comes a big word for me because it's the two words I can't say put together. The right sacroiliac area includes a portion of the right side of the sacrum and the still articulated aerial, I'm not even going to try that, surface of the ilium. These fragmentary cut bones are suspected to be of possible human origin because of their observable anatomical contours, as well as the expected ratio of the cortical to the trabecular bone. Okay, guys, I see the kids coming in the house, so we're going to stop right here. We'll finish this one statement. No histological examination was performed because of the burned and fragile nature of the bone and its inability to survive intact during the thin sectioning procedure required for microscopic analysis. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead. We'll highlight this. I'm going to go ahead and mute my mic. This is our little, what do you call that, intermission or whatever. Everybody gets to go to the bathroom, get a drink, all that. For those of you that are just joining, we're going to take about a 5-minute break. We will be back in just 5 minutes, which will be approximately my time, 4:43, 4:44. And we'll make it even 4:45. And this will give you a chance to catch your breath, because I'm telling you, this is amazing. You don't want to miss this. All right, we'll see you in 5, everybody. We got good news. You better come on the back porch. It's going to affect your life. It's going to be wonderful. You can put the juice down. Okay. First time in your life. the litter box. This is getting moved, and the litter box is going to go in the corner. Shut that front door.
Oh, sorry.
Dogs are locked
You didn't
up.
close correctly. Dogs are locked up.
I'm going to have this where everybody can hear us, so don't speak. I'm going live.
Need something to drink first, Mom.
Well, do it quietly, please, and don't talk no matter what, because I have 400 people
Why?
right now.
People have lives.
Yeah, but I don't want you I don't want you to be heard.
Why?
Because I said so.
You're so afraid of some weird people messing.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. Literally. They can't do anything.
You're slamming doors.
I have to get a drink. I wasn't slamming doors.
Please don't.
I'm doing nothing.
Please. Please love me. Please love me. Okay, guys. I'm glad you guys can hear me. I'm trying to get my teenagers to understand I'm live. Okay, guys. Are you ready? Sorry about you get to be part of my live. Okay. You'll have to bear with me. I have teenagers pouring drinks and making snacks because they're teenagers and they're home from school. But he's telling me everybody knows that we have kids, so they're right. Okay, let's go back into this. How do I do this again? I go like this. There we go. Open mic, open mic. I know. You guys got to hear my house. Sounds like my house. Crockett said, yeah, if you have teenagers, you know how it is. Okay, so we were right in here where the histological exam was performed because of the burnt and fragile nature of the bones and its inability to survive intact during the thin sectioning procedural requirement or required for microscopic analysis. So some of the bones, they're saying, could not be performed. And one of them they're saying is this tag, 8675. Bone fragment from tag 7964 was found in barrel 2, according to the description on the evidence tag. Now I want to stop there just a minute. We do have some researchers that are working on barrels, and barrel 2 has become a very questionable barrel. I do know Dassey's did have a barrel 2, but there's some implications here and suspicious nature of how much barrel 2 got moved around and where the chain of custody is. And so even if we have a bone fragment in 7964, these barrels are portable, and that's a complication. So let's go on. And also collected in tag 7964 was unmodified, burned, and calcined human bone for the scapula, spine, long bone shaft fragments, and a possible metacarpal fragment. Non-human and unidentified bone fragments were also recovered. Okay. Items from tag number 8675 were found along with unburned non-human bone in debris pile contents that was geographically located at N44 degrees, 14 minutes, 51 seconds, and west 87 degrees, 41 minutes, and 51 seconds. So this is your latitude and longitude right here, guys. And we also have a map. She doesn't like to be called the map girl because actually she does a lot of other stuff. But in what she researches, she's constantly on a map. And so she's become very, very well versed with latitude and longitude. And so if you want to jump in on that right there, that would be fantastic. This examination has documented the presence of pre-incarceration trauma in the form of cuts to at least 2 pelvic bone fragments of possible human origin. Remember, we're talking about the pelvic bone, and here it's talking about the documentation of presence of pre-incarceration. So this would be pre-fire, we have cut bones, not after fire. Other cut bone fragments recovered in the total assemblage may be of human origin, but could not be identified as such because of their small size and undiagnostic shape. Interpretation and conclusions. Every attempt has been made to distinguish human from non-human bone throughout this forensic anthropological analysis, but it is possible that because of the overwhelming number of bone fragments recovered, the small size and irregular shapes of most of the fragments, and the recognized effects of heat alter, altercations, al- alterations to bone, and some non-diagnostic fragments of human origin may not have been recognized as such. It is the opinion of the undersigned that none of those small, non diagnostic fragments would have affected the observations, interpretations, or conclusions presented in this report, or in my previous report dated July 4th, 2006. If anything, the recognition as human would have likely strengthened the observations made and reported here. Let me grab a drink real quick. I'm addicted to sweet tea. I freely admit it. The vast majority of diagnostic human bone identified through this forensic anthropological analysis as human was collected from or adjacent to the burn pit on Mr. Stephen Avery's property. Calumet County Sheriff's Department, evidence tag 7924, 7944, 8318, 9597, and 9598. Oh, for you people that are searching on these bones, this report is in the library for you guys, and you can thank Jax to that, because Jax from MAM Group, as well as the Stephen Avery Group, Stephen Avery's Innocent Group, has offered. She came to us today and dropped this off in our lap and told us, you've got the green light to share it, and we were like, on it. So you can thank her personally for that. It just shows that we're all for one here to get them home. And let's continue. Burned human bone fragments were identified from the skull, including face, lower jaw, and dental. Now, earlier it said that we didn't have any dental. Now it says dental. Scapula, clavicle, upper arm bones, ribs, metacarpals, I can't even say that, metatarsals, spine, sacrum, innominate, boy, some big words, hip bone, there you go, and lower leg bones. Other non-human and non-biological items, metal, fabric, plant material, and non-metal items, were also recovered and bagged separately. Human agency must be invoked to explain how these human remains were altered by fire, and possibly how burned bones of possible human origin with human modifications in the form of cut marks and a saw curve was recovered from elsewhere on the property. Let's read that. It says that's pretty big statement there. How come that's not highlighted by the state? Human agency must be evoked to explain how these human remains were altered by fire, and possibly how burned bone of possible human origin with human modification in form of cut marks was recovered from elsewhere on the property. Elsewhere? Interesting. Although fragmentary and incomplete, virtually every area of the skeleton is represented by at least one identifiable fragment. Bone fragmentation due to fire effect and high velocity trauma to the skull makes it impossible to provide any accurate estimation of what percentage of the entire skeleton is representative. Rescreening soil from the charred pile, evidence tag 7924, yielded burned human bone fragments representing skull and dental, spine, sacrum, manubrium, upper part of the sternum and the breastbone, hand, wrist, ribs, and long bones. Other human bone fragments found east and west of the dugout site. Ooh, you guys, hold on. East and west of the dugout site, tag 7943, tag 7944, include tibia, spine, unidentified shaft fragments, ribs, ulna, radius, hand, foot, and incomplete articular head, the humerus femur fragment. Other tags also contain bone fragments identified as human. Right here. There's your list, guys. This forensic anthropology examination laboratory analysis has identified the burned and extremely fragmented human remains as those of an adult female less than 35 years of age. It is not possible to estimate stature or determine ancestry given the bone fragments and destruction due to the burning episodes. A deliberate attempt was made to obscure the identity of the victim as well as the cause and manner of death through burning. Evidence for two high velocity gunshot wounds to the head has been documented. There are cuts to the minimum and to the areas of the pelvic bone that may be of human origin. Additionally, a possible human calcite long bone fragment tagged 7964 with hesitation cut marks and a saw curve mark has been recognized as have other undiagnosed cut bone fragments that may be of human origin. This young adult female should be considered a victim of homicidal violence, with possible evidence for postmortem processing of portions of the body to facilitate disposal. Respectfully submitted, Leslie E. Eisenberg, PhD. Enclosed, she lists a number of documents. So, you guys, we're going to end it here, even though we have a lot more to go over. We're going to, in this live, we will be starting another live in about, give us about 15 minutes, and we will start a second part to this. And that part, we'll go ahead and scroll and tell you what that's going to be. She does attach all of the different references and source material there, which is also source material for you guys. And again, let's scroll through these bones. Oh, goodness. Figure 11, enclosure 8675. Now we're getting more familiar with the tags, you guys. Figure 2, enclosed and close up. I wonder what this green highlighted line is here. It just is strange. It could be just part of the photo, but I'm just wondering why that's there. And look at this little piece and this little piece. I'm no anthropologist, but those are interesting. And look at that. Wow. I don't mean to end on such a depressing note, you guys. 8675. We're going to kind of breeze through this. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Jeremy Hawkins, but we've already reviewed a lot of that. So we'll just touch base on that. And we're going to get through all this part where he's purchasing the copy of the forms, the 1,114 page. After that, if I can get through it, we have Exhibit 4, release items FBI. Yeah, I want to go over these with you, and we'll go from there. So let's go ahead. It's 4 o'clock now. Let's say 4:30. That gives everybody about a half hour to kind of catch your breath before we do one more live. I don't know if we'll have a second live after that. It depends on how far we get through the documents, but I don't like to leave these too long because I don't want to miss anything either. I'd like you to be there. So, okay, guys, with that, let's go over here to the Stephen Avery File Library. And you can go through here and find the documents, and that's at the Rubberducky StephenAveryFiles.com, and that'll get you ready for our next live. So I want to thank you each from the bottom of my heart for joining. We don't have subscribers, we have supporters on this cause, and we have over 3,000, so that's huge. We've got a lot of awareness going on, and we're teaming up with a lot of people that have been through a lot to support Stephen and Brendan and others that are wrongfully convicted. The good news is that the RD researchers are looking at a very specific couple cases that we will also be digging into alongside of the Stephen Avery case as well, and broadening our horizons. We've gotten such an amazing support group here that I think we can spread the love a little bit and pick a case that really, really helps us out. You still can't open the site. Jeannie, are you talking about Discord still? Because we definitely want to help everybody to be able to get to the site. I know if you have a very, very old, outdated laptop or an outdated iPad, Discord doesn't always work real good. So we do apologize for that. And we may find a way to have a live chat on a different forum. But Okay, guys, it comes up but won't let me click on anything. Are you talking about Discord, Jeannie? Yes. Okay, well, we'll try to get an actual tech guy on here from Discord. Um, no, no, the library opens for everybody. It's just a website, BB. She's talking about it won't let her click on anything in Discord. Okay, guys, I want to thank you so much. And when we join back, I want to thank all the mods because they are doing a phenomenal job. And I want to thank all the researchers. And I want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts, Jax, for being such a kind person. And, it's incredible how much we're all coming together on this. So lots of love, lots of love. Much love, everybody. And if you didn't do the crime, you shouldn't sit the time. Thank you, guys.